So picture this. The Battle of Yamamah is at a boiling point. It's been absolutely brutal. The enemy forces, they're cornered, they're desperate, and they've made a last-ditch effort to save themselves by barricading inside a fortress. But this is no ordinary fortress. It's a garden with high walls, a place that's about to earn a really grim and unforgettable name.
Right, so let's get into this tactical nightmare. What happens when the very thing that's supposed to protect you becomes your own prison? For the Muslim army on the outside, this was a huge, deadly problem. I mean, how are you supposed to win a fight when the enemy is completely locked away, but you know they're ready to fight down to the very last man?
The battle had been just raging on, but the tide finally turned. The army of Musaylimah, this guy who had falsely claimed he was a prophet, they broke and ran from the main battlefield. They scrambled for what they thought was safety inside this massive, walled garden and slammed the gates shut. They probably thought, "Whew, we're safe." But really, they had just sealed their own doom. Now the companions, the men and women who learned directly from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, they didn't let up for a second. They pursued the enemy so relentlessly that every last fleeing soldier was forced inside this garden. And from that day forward, this place would be known by a new, chilling name: the Garden of Death. Just the name alone tells you how intense things were about to get. Okay, so you have the Muslim army on the outside, looking in. The enemy is dug in, totally fortified. It's a tactical dead end. The walls are high, the gates are locked from the inside. They needed a key. But this wasn't a problem a blacksmith could solve. I mean, that's the million-dollar question for the commander, Khalid ibn al-Waleed. What do you do? Do you settle in for a long, drawn-out siege that could take weeks, maybe months? Or is there another way? Something so crazy, so completely unexpected, that the enemy would never in a million years see it coming? Well, the answer came from one man. Can you just imagine hearing those words? Al-Bara ibn Malik, one of the bravest companions of the Prophet, steps up and says this. He's not suggesting they find a weak spot in the wall. No, he's suggesting he become the weak spot. He was volunteering to be chucked over a wall into a garden swarming with thousands of enemy soldiers, all by himself. And you know what? His brothers in arms, they didn't even hesitate. They agreed to this wild, desperate plan. They lifted him up, balancing him on this makeshift platform of shields and spears. Just try to picture that scene, the tension, the focus, every single soldier there knowing they're about to send one of their best into what looked like certain death. And then, with what must have been this massive collective heave, they launched him. He just sails over the top of that high wall and vanishes from sight, landing somewhere inside the Garden of Death. The sheer guts of this move, it's just breathtaking. It's a strategy that could only come from pure, unshakable faith. So, what happened next? It's the stuff of legends. Al-Bara lands right in the middle of his enemies and just goes on the attack. He was like a whirlwind, one man carving a path through an entire army. And he had only one goal in mind: get to that gate. It was him against thousands, fighting just to create a tiny opening for his friends. And believe it or not, he did it. Against every single odd, al-Bara fought his way to the gate and managed to unbar it from the inside. The second those heavy doors swung open, the Muslim army just poured into the garden. The final, bloodiest phase of the Battle of Yamamah was on, all because of the unbelievable courage of one man. But al-Bara wasn't the only hero inside those walls that day. Oh no. Once the army was inside, the stories of individual courage just pile up. And one of the most incredible stories is that of a female warrior whose bravery was just off the charts. See, among the fighters who streamed into that garden was Nusaybah bint Qays. She had marched with the army and had made this incredibly serious vow. She would not put down her sword until Musaylimah and his entire army were defeated. And in the absolute chaos of that garden, she absolutely fulfilled her promise. 12. When the battle was over, she had 12 wounds on her body. But these weren't just injuries. They were seen as badges of honor. Each one was a testament to her incredible faith and her commitment to defending her community. Just an amazing symbol of her steadfastness. Now, let's not forget the whole point of this war. The ultimate goal was to stop the false prophet Musaylimah. With the walls breached and the garden becoming a battlefield, that final showdown with a man who called himself a prophet was about to happen. The historical accounts paint this really vivid picture of his last moments. He wasn't some dignified leader meeting his end. He was found standing in a gap in the wall, totally out of his mind with rage, literally foaming at the mouth. He was trapped, his army was being destroyed, and his whole false prophecy was just collapsing around him. And then, two warriors saw him at the exact same time. Washi ibn Harb, yes, the same man who had killed Hamza years before, he threw his spear. It hit Musaylimah and went clean through him. And at almost the very same moment, another amazing companion, Abu Dujana, charged forward and struck him down with his sword. The liar was dead.
The finality of it all was actually captured by a woman who was watching from a palace nearby. As soon as Musaylimah fell, she screamed out these words. And that cry, full of shock, basically announced to everyone who could hear that the leader of the rebellion was gone. The battle was over.
But winning in the Garden of Death, it wasn't a time for celebration. Not at all. The cost was just immense, and the mood was really one of deep, somber reflection. This was a victory that came at a truly staggering price. 600. That's how many Muslims were martyred in the Battle of Yamamah. Just let that number sink in for a second. 600 lives all given in one campaign to keep the faith unified. Now, while martyrdom is considered the highest honor, the grief was still just overwhelming. And these weren't just nameless soldiers. The list of the fallen included so many senior companions. People like Abu Dujana, who fell in that garden after his leg had been broken. And maybe most devastatingly, many of those who died were the Huffaz, the people who had memorized the entire Quran. It was a massive blow to the very heart of the community. The story of another one of the martyrs, Thabit ibn Qays, just perfectly captures the character of these people. After his death, he appeared in another man's dream. And in this dream, he gave super specific details about where to find his shield, which had been stolen, and told the man how to settle his debts. Well, the man reported the dream, they found the shield exactly where Thabit said it would be, and the Caliph, Abu Bakr, carried out his will. It's the only known case in history of a person's will being executed after they died. It's a testament to his incredible integrity, even beyond the grave. So this is the heavy question that just hung over the city of Medina. Of course, there was relief, there was joy that the rebellion had been put down, but all of that was completely overshadowed by this deep, deep grief of losing so many of their absolute best. It was a victory, but a victory bathed in tears, and a painful reminder of what steadfastness can sometimes cost. So it all comes down to this. Where did this unbelievable courage come from? The kind of courage that makes a man ask to be thrown over a wall, the resolve that lets a woman fight on with 12 wounds, the integrity that makes a will valid even after death? Well, the sources are crystal clear. This level of faith, this willingness to sacrifice absolutely everything, was the direct result of the love, the discipline, and the lessons instilled in them by their teacher, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.